discovering God's miraculous origin, unveiling his incredible purpose and transforming blessings. In the 3rd year of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, an oppressive cloud loomed over the Israelites in Egypt. Their cries rose to the heavens, drowning in despair as Pharaoh, steeped in pride and power, decreed that every Hebrew boy born be cast into the Nile. Yet amid this darkness, a flicker of hope shone from the humble dwelling of Jochebed. Holding her newborn son close, she whispered ancient truths of God's promises, kindling the sacred memory of the covenant with Abraham, a promise that seemed long forgotten in the throes of their suffering. As time passed, the mighty hand of oppression pressed down upon the Israelites, forcing them to toil with burdensome labor. Their spirits weighed down. The people of God screamed for deliverance. Yet in the stillness of the wilderness, a powerful destiny awaited its unveiling. Moses, raised among the Egyptians, grappled with his dual identity. His heart strained under the weight of his people's anguish. A fire ignited deep within him, yearning for action. One fateful day, as he shepherded the flocks of Jethro, Moses ventured near Horeb, the mountain of God. Suddenly, a sight unlike any other captured his gaze, a bush ablaze but not consumed. Intrigued, he drew near, and there came a voice, breaking the silence of the wilderness. "Moses! Moses!" The divine utterance was unmistakable, reverberating with authority and love. "I have seen the oppression of my people," God declared, "and I have come down to deliver them." Yet despite this holy calling, doubt crept into Moses' heart. "Who am I to lead your people?" he murmured before the blazing presence. His insecurity echoed in the barren silence, a reflection of a heart wrestling to reconcile its calling. But God persisted, promising miracles and signs, assuring Moses of his unwavering presence. As Moses hesitated, a moral conflict brewed. Would he step boldly into his destiny or yield to his fears? Before we continue with this incredible biblical account, I want to make sure you don't miss any of these powerful scripture stories. Click the bell icon and select all notifications. These biblical narratives have transformed countless lives throughout history. If God's word through this story is blessing you, please like and share with someone who needs to hear about God's faithfulness today. Tell me in the comments, which biblical story has most impacted your faith journey? I'm always amazed how God's word speaks to hearts across generations. Now let's continue with what the Lord did next. As Moses ventured back towards Egypt, every step felt like a march toward destiny. He entered Pharaoh's courts, the atmosphere heavy with defiance. Yet Moses bore a message from the Almighty. "Let my people go." Pharaoh's response was one of vehement refusal, igniting a cascade of calamities. The plagues unleashed upon the land as a testament to God's sovereignty, igniting both fear in Pharaoh and hope among the Israelites. Amid the thickness of suffering, with each subsequent plague, the Israelites witnessed the mighty hand of God at work. Their cries turned to anticipation, a fervent prayer emerging within their hearts. Would God honor his covenant? As the last plague loomed, a tangible anticipation filled the air. Moses stood at the brink, eyes fixed on the horizon. Deliverance was near, but a divine mystery still unfolded. Would God indeed part the waters of the Red Sea, leading his people to freedom, or would the waves crash upon their dreams? The heart of the nation awaited divine resolution, poised on the edge of history. As the night fell heavy over Egypt, the atmosphere pulsated with tension and fear. The final act of divine retribution was at hand, and both the Egyptians and the Israelites braced themselves for the night to come. Moses, having gathered the elders of Israel, spoke with unwavering resolve about the instructions he had received from the Lord. "Take a lamb for each household," he commanded, fervor swelling within him. "And you shall kill the lamb at twilight. Take a bunch of hyssop, dip it in the blood, and apply it to the doorposts of your homes. When the Lord passes through Egypt to strike down the Egyptians, he will see the blood on the top and sides of the doorframe and will pass over the doorway, and he will not permit the destroyer to enter your homes." Exodus 12 verses 21 to 23. The elders listened intently, fear mingling with hope, as they prepared to follow the commandment given by God, clinging to the assurance of salvation spoken through his prophet. This night would be different. This night would usher in a new dawn. As the sun dipped below the horizon, a palpable stillness enveloped the land. Families huddled around their tables, sharing the lamb's roasted flesh, bitter herbs, and unleavened bread. The tension in the air thickened with the understanding that the fate of the nation hung in precarious balance. In Pharaoh's palace, the king reclined as darkness settled in. His heart, hardened by pride and power, refused to yield to the warnings delivered by Moses. What is a mere god to the might of Egypt? He scoffed, oblivious to the judgment looming over him. The false deities of the Nile and the sun offered no protection that night. As midnight approached, the silence was shattered by a keening wail that echoed throughout the land, piercing the very heart of Egypt. The cry of anguish lifted from every household marked by the absence of the blood on the doorframes. The firstborn of Egypt, from the highest in the palace to the lowest in the pit, fell as the weight of divine wrath bore down. In contrast, within the homes of the Israelites, the air bristled with a different kind of energy, the energy of deliverance. When the dawn broke, beams of sunlight streamed through their windows, illuminating joy mingled with reverence. The promise of God fulfilled could be felt as the lifeblood of hope coursed through their veins. Prepare yourselves for the Exodus, Moses declared as families gathered their belongings in haste. The road ahead shimmered with uncertainty, yet faith ignited their hearts. God had set his people free by a mighty hand, and they would not forget the night of the Passover, the night that changed everything. After Pharaoh summoned Moses and Aaron, he finally relented, saying, "Go, leave my people and take the Israelites with you." Exodus 12 verse 31. With trembling hearts and feet shod for the journey, the Israelites departed, laden with treasures bestowed by the Egyptians, yet rich in promise and divine destiny. As they ventured forth into the wilderness, God moved before them as a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night, leading them towards the Red Sea. Their hearts were aflame with faith, but lingering in the shadows were the doubts and fears of the past. Would they truly be free? Would their cries be heard, even amidst the turmoil of the approaching enemy? As the army of Pharaoh bore down upon them, their faith would soon be tested. Would they trust in the God who had rescued them? The tides were shifting, and the stage was set for an encounter with divine power that would echo through all generations. But with each step forward, a question loomed, a divine mystery awaited revelation. How would God reveal his ultimate plan for his chosen people, and what miracle awaited behind the waters of the Red Sea? As the Israelites advanced toward the Red Sea, their hearts were a tumult of hope and trepidation. With every step, the sound of chariots and the war cries of Pharaoh's army drew closer. The sun glinted off the armor of the Egyptian soldiers. A harsh reminder of the power they had just escaped yet still loomed over them, relentless. "Why have you brought us out here to die in the wilderness?" the people cried in desperation, their voices rising like a chorus of despair. Were there not enough graves in Egypt? Exodus 14 verse 11. Fear morphed into a heavy weight upon their shoulders, a shadow that threatened their very faith. Moses, standing firm amidst the turmoil, raised his hands and called upon the name of the Lord. He spoke with conviction, "Fear not, stand firm, and see the salvation of the Lord, which he will work for you today." Exodus 14 verse 13. His voice cut through the clamor like a beacon, instilling a glimmer of faith within their hearts. God knew the Israelites needed assurance. The very air crackled with the power of his presence, for the Lord was about to reveal his mighty hand. "Lift up your staff and stretch out your hand over the sea and divide it, that the people of Israel may go through the sea on dry ground." Exodus 14 verse 16. With trembling resolve, Moses obeyed. As he extended his staff, the waters of the Red Sea surged upward, forming a towering wall on either side, while the ground beneath became as dry as the desert sands. A way was made where there had been no way, a path through the depths of the raging waters. The Israelites commenced their hurried march, fear sweetened by the taste of freedom. Behind them, the clattering hooves and roaring voices of Pharaoh's army pursued relentlessly, emboldened by their bitter pride. Yet, the Lord looked down upon the Egyptians with growing disdain. The pillar of cloud moved to the rear, enveloping the Israelites in protection while darkening the path for their pursuers. As they pressed on in disbelief, a sense of awe began to sweep through the ranks. Parents gathered their children close, and the elderly leaned heavily on their staffs, each one acutely aware of the miracle unfolding around them. The waters held their breath, standing like giants, creating a sanctuary of divine intervention. "Look," cried a young man, pointing toward the miraculous escape. "The sea, it's a wall. We are safe. We are to cross over." Hope surged once more, igniting a vigor that had seemed lost. They stepped into the parted waters, crunching on the dry ground as faith mingled with wonder. Yet, as the last of them crossed, the Egyptians chased after in reckless abandon. It was then that the Lord stirred, for he unleashed confusion among the soldiers. Their wheels began to clog, and they faltered in their pursuit. "Let us flee from before Israel," they cried out in horror, "for the Lord fights for them against the Egyptians." Exodus 14 verse 25. The sea, now full of the divine mandate, awaited God's command. Just as the last foot stepped from the dry land, Moses lifted his hands again. The waters crashed together like thunder, surging over the Egyptians, drowning them in depths from which they would never rise. On the opposite shore, Israel stood trembling yet elated, witnessing the hand of their God in majestic fury. "I will sing to the Lord, for he has triumphed gloriously. The horse and his rider he has thrown into the sea." Exodus 15 verse 1, sang Miriam, with her tambourine ringing praise to the heavens. As they walked toward the wilderness, having escaped certain doom, the reality settled within their hearts. They were no longer slaves of Egypt, but the chosen people of the Most High God. Yet, an undeniable question hung in the air, a divine mystery that beckoned their spirits. What greater purpose lay ahead for a nation birthed through deliverance, and how would they walk in the unfolding promise of God's covenant? Then Moses and the people of Israel sang this song to the Lord, and they said, "I will sing to the Lord, for he has triumphed gloriously. The horse and his rider he has thrown into the sea." Exodus 15 verse 1. Their voices rose in unison, echoing across the shores of the Red Sea, while tambourines clashed in joyous rhythm. Miriam, the prophetess and sister of Aaron, played her tambourine, leading the women in celebration as they danced, their hearts filled with praise. In the wake of such overwhelming deliverance, the Israelites felt the stirrings of faith within them, like fresh water quenches a parched land. Yet, deep within the hearts of many burned questions even more profound than their gratitude. What shall we do next? They wondered. What awaits us in this wilderness where every step is unfamiliar? As they journeyed onward, the sun bore down upon them with relentless heat, and their stomachs began to grumble in hunger. The whispers of discontent surfaced once more. "Would that we had died by the hand of the Lord in the land of Egypt," they lamented. "At least there we had flesh to eat and bread to fill our hunger." Exodus 16 verse 3. Their joyous song quickly soured to bitterness, as memories of their former life taunted them. Moses, hearing their complaints, turned his face toward heaven, seeking guidance from the Almighty. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Behold, I will rain bread from heaven for you, and the people shall go out and gather a day's portion every day, that I may test them whether they will walk in my law or not." Exodus 16 verse 4. The promise of daily sustenance would echo through the ages, a testament to God's provision and faithfulness amid their trials. And so, that evening, quails came up and covered the camp, while in the morning, there lay a layer of dew around the camp. When the dew had gone up, behold, there was on the face of the wilderness a fine, flake-like thing, as fine as frost on the ground. The people of Israel saw it, and they said to one another, "What is it?" For they did not know what it was. "It is the bread that the Lord has given you to eat." Exodus 16 verse 15. Moses declared, "Each morning, as the sunrise cast its golden glow upon the dew-kissed ground, the Israelites gathered this heavenly sustenance, which they named manna. It was a food that nourished them, a divine gift from the hand of their provider. For 40 years it would sustain them as they wandered in the wilderness, a clear reminder of God's unyielding love for his people. Yet the journey before them was fraught not only with hunger but also the challenge of faith. For God had chosen them with purpose, to shape them into a holy nation, a kingdom of priests. Exodus 19 verse 6. Would they trust in his provision, or would fear once more taint their hearts? As they moved deeper into the wilderness, the Lord spoke to Moses from the mountain. You yourselves have seen what I did to the Egyptians, and how I bore you on eagle's wings and brought you to myself. Now therefore, if you will indeed obey my voice and keep my covenant, you shall be my treasured possession among all peoples. Exodus 19 verses 4 to 5. The reality of their covenant relationship began to unfold, revealing to them a grander plan behind their deliverance. In the midst of the barren landscape, the divine romance of God with his chosen people was manifesting. The promised land awaited, but the path was to be walked in obedience and faith. Yet, the question remained as they journeyed onward. What further trials lay ahead, and how would they emerge transformed, heralds of his glory in the world? For the very future of a nation was being forged through trials and blessings alike, each step a revelation of God's sovereign will. Then the people of Israel continued their journey through the wilderness, their hearts torn between disbelief and faith. As they traveled on, they soon encountered a parched area where the wells had run dry, and the sharp stones underfoot bruised their weary feet. At this, they began to raise their voices again in complaint against Moses. What shall we drink? They cried out, their desperation echoing through the desolate landscape like a haunting melody of despair. Moses turned to the Lord in urgent prayer, seeking guidance in their time of need. The voice of the Lord came to him, saying, Go on before the people, and take with you some of the elders of Israel. Also take in your hand the rod with which you struck the river, and go. Behold, I will stand before you there on the rock at Horeb, and you shall strike the rock, and water will come out of it, that the people may drink. Exodus 17 verses 5 to 6. Obediently, Moses gathered the elders and set out toward the rock, his heart stirring with faith at the miraculous promise from God. With every step, he recalled the works of the Almighty, who had delivered his people from the hand of Pharaoh and led them through the parted sea. When he arrived at the rock, Moses raised his staff, and as he struck it with force, water surged forth, gushing abundantly for the people and their livestock. The sound of rushing water filled the air, a joyful song of sustenance in the midst of barrenness. The people drank deeply, their thirst quenched, and for a moment, divine wonder replaced their bitter complaints. Yet, amid the rush of gratitude and the thrumming of hearts revived, there were still those among them whose faith wavered. Is the Lord among us or not? They muttered to one another, casting doubt even as they savored the miracle. The Lord, in his infinite mercy, saw their struggle and decided to reveal his power more fully. As the Israelites continued to wander, they encountered a fierce enemy, the Amalekites, who attacked them without warning. Fear gripped the camp once again, but Joshua, chosen by Moses to lead the men in battle, rallied the troops. Let us fight for our people and for the glory of our God, he declared, his voice echoing with the strength of confidence. Moses ascended to the top of a hill, bringing with him the staff of God, committed to seeking divine favor over the battle. As long as he raised his hands with the staff, Israel prevailed. But when he lowered them, the tide of battle turned against them. Soon, fatigue overcame him, and his hands grew heavy. Seeing this, Aaron and Hur came alongside Moses. They placed a stone for him to sit upon and held his hands steady until the sun set. Through their faithfulness, Israel gained the victory that day, for the Lord had declared, I will utterly blot out the memory of Amalek from under heaven. Exodus 17 verse 14. As the people rejoiced in their victory, Moses built an altar and called it The Lord is my banner, proclaiming, for hands were lifted up to the throne of the Lord. Amidst these experiences, God's covenant promises unfolded like the rolling waves, rich in purpose and destiny. The Israelites learned not only to trust in his provision but also that their battles were fought not in their own strength but in divine alliance. As they journeyed to the promised land, the questions that lingered in the air were laden with awe. What further revelations would the Almighty unveil? What purpose lay ahead that would mold them into something greater than they could comprehend? The days stretched before them, each one pregnant with God's sovereign will, as the unfolding narrative of his miraculous origin began to shape the heart of a nation. And so the people of Israel continued their journey, the memory of victory over the Amalekites still fresh in their hearts. Yet their faith remained frail like a flickering flame. They marched forth, led by the cloud by day and the fire by night, ever seeking with longing the land promised to their forefathers. As they drew closer to the mountain of Sinai, the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Prepare the people, sanctify them today and tomorrow, and let them wash their garments. For on the third day I will come down upon Mount Sinai in the sight of all the people." Exodus 19 verses 10 to 11. With fear and wonder, Moses obeyed, consecrating the people and instructing them to observe the sacred boundary that none should cross, for the mountain was a holy place. On the morning of the third day, a thick cloud came upon the mountain, and the voice of the Lord thundered like the sound of a great shofar, shaking the earth beneath their feet. The people trembled in fear, falling prostrate before the majesty of the Almighty. And as his presence enveloped Sinai, the entire mountain was wrapped in smoke because the Lord descended upon it in fire. Its smoke ascended like the smoke of a furnace, and the whole mountain trembled greatly. Exodus 19 verse 18. Moses stood before the Lord, and God spoke to him, declaring, "Thus you shall say to the children of Israel, You have seen what I did to the Egyptians, and how I bore you on eagle's wings and brought you to myself. Now therefore, if you will indeed obey my voice and keep my covenant, then you shall be my own special treasure among all the peoples." Exodus 19 verses 4 to 5. The words of the Lord resonated within the hearts of the Israelites, stirring a mix of awe and reverence within them. They answered in unity, saying, "All that the Lord has spoken we will do." Exodus 19 verse 8. At that moment, they sealed a sacred agreement, committing themselves to the God who had delivered them. Moses ascended the mountain to receive the commandments that would govern their lives, while the people remained at the base, their hearts racing with anticipation. As Moses lingered in the presence of God, the fear among the Israelites grew. Days turned into longer days. They felt abandoned, left to ponder their commitment. "Come, make us gods that shall go before us," they urged Aaron, for Moses had not returned, and their hearts ached for assurance. Aaron, swayed by their pleas, took their gold and fashioned a calf, declaring to the people, "This is your God, O Israel, that brought you out of the land of Egypt." The sound of revelry rose from the camp as the people danced and reveled before this unholy symbol, their hearts turning away from the God who had saved them. Exodus 32 verse 4. In the heights of Sinai, the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Go, get down, for your people whom you brought out of the land of Egypt have corrupted themselves." Exodus 32 verse 7. Anguish filled Moses' heart as he poured out his pleas for mercy. He begged, "Oh, this people have sinned a great sin. Yet now, if you will forgive their sin, forgive it. But if not, I pray, blot me out of your book which you have written." Exodus 32 verses 31 to 32. As Moses descended the mountain, his heart burdened. He held tightly to the tablets inscribed with God's own hand. The clash between holy covenant and human failure echoed in the air. How would the story unfold? Would the people's rebellion obscure God's covenant promises? And in that moment, amidst their unfaithfulness, the Lord fashioned a plan of redemption, revealing to Moses the profound depth of his grace and the incredible destiny awaiting his people. What further unfolding of God's miraculous origin awaited in the journey toward his appointed land? As Moses neared the encampment of Israel, the sounds of revelry struck him like a storm. His heart sank as he saw the people, swirling around the golden calf, worshipping the work of their own hands. They danced in wild abandon, their faithfulness to the Lord washed away like footprints in the sand, consumed by idolatry. Anger ignited within him, flaring like the fire upon the mountain. Moses clutched the tablets, the weight of their divine inscription bringing him to a pause. These were not merely stones. They held the covenant, the breath of God's holy decree. With resolute determination, he descended swiftly. When he reached the base of the mountain, his eyes beheld the scene of chaos that lay before him. The people had turned from their deliverer, and Moses cried out, his voice laden with sorrow and disbelief. What folly is this? Have you forgotten the mercy that delivered you? He thundered, his heart aching for them. Upon hearing his voice, the revelers ceased. Their eyes widened, the reality of their faithlessness settling over them like a shroud. In that moment of clarity, Moses cast down the tablets, shattering them at the foot of the mountain, a visible testament to the broken covenant. The sound echoed, reverberating among the boulders, as if the very heavens wept at their betrayal. Then he turned to Aaron, filled with righteous indignation. What have you done? Why did you yield to their pleas? Did you not remind them of our God who brought us out of bondage? Aaron stuttered, fear evident in his eyes. I said to them, whoever has gold, let them break it off. And they gave it to me, and I cast it into the fire, and out came this calf. His voice trembled, attempting to deflect blame from himself. Moses, recognizing the need for action, called for those who were faithful to the Lord. Whoever is on the Lord's side, come to me. Exodus 32 verse 26. Fear gripped the hearts of those who remained loyal, and they stepped forward, forming a band of righteous justice. Picking up the sword of conviction, Moses commanded them, go, and slay every man his brother, and every man his companion, and every man his neighbor. Exodus 32 verse 27. And as they fulfilled his command that day, 3,000 souls fell, a stark reminder of the weight of sin and the seriousness of God's covenant. Later, the weight of grief overcame him, and he returned to the mountain, interceding once more before the Lord. Oh, this people! They have sinned a great sin, and have made for themselves a god of gold. Yet now, if you will forgive their sin, forgive it. But if not, I pray, blot me out of your book which you have written. Exodus 32 verses 31 to 32. The Lord's voice rang forth, heavy with authority and mercy. Whoever has sinned against me, I will blot him out of my book. Exodus 32 verse 33. In profound grief, Moses understood the gravity of this divine response. Yet, amidst the chaos, the conversation pivoted into an extraordinary revelation of God's grace. The Lord then revealed his plan to Moses, stating, now go, lead the people to the place of which I have spoken to you. Behold, my angel shall go before you. With his words, hope flickered, as the stage was set for a journey of restoration and promise. The Lord manifestly demonstrated that even through the darkness of rebellion, he remained sovereign, shaping a path toward redemption. What would now become of Israel as they faced the consequences of their actions? How would the unfolding grace of the Lord lead them forward, drawing them back to his heart? The answer loomed in the heavens, awaiting the appointed time for his covenant to be fulfilled. And the next day, Moses rose early in the morning and addressed the people, gathering them before the entrance of the tent of meeting. With somber words, he declared, you have sinned a great sin, but now I will go up to the Lord. Perhaps I can make atonement for your sin. Exodus 32 verse 30. As he ascended the mountain once again, the weight of intercession rested upon him like a heavy mantle. Upon reaching the summit, he fell before the Lord and cried out, oh, this people has committed a great sin, and have made themselves gods of gold. Yet now, if you will forgive their sin, forgive them. But if not, blot me out of your book. Exodus 32 verses 31 to 32. His voice was raw with desperation, reflecting the deep love he bore for his people. The Lord's voice interrupted, laden with righteousness and justice, yet imbued with a touch of grace. Whoever has sinned against me, I will blot him out of my book. Now go, lead the people to the place of which I have spoken to you. Behold, my angel shall go before you. Exodus 32 verses 33 to 34. Moses' heart wavered between hope and despair. The people were facing the dire consequences of their rebellion. Their sins had inflicted a wound upon the covenant made with God. He turned back toward the camp, carrying the fragility of a leader's hope, his mind swirling with thoughts of how to guide a wayward nation toward redemption. Upon his descent, A cloud of uncertainty lay over the camp. The people had witnessed the wrath of God, yet many remained hardened. Moses stood before them, tears glistening in his eyes. The Lord has heard your cries and has promised to lead us to the promised land. But he will not go with you in this state of rebellion. Exodus 33 verse 3. The news struck like thunderbolts among the Israelites. They fell to their knees, mourning their transgressions. Desperation filled the air, and their hearts stirred with a longing for restoration. We have sinned, they cried collectively, recognizing the depths of their folly, yearning for their God to return to them. In the tent of meeting, the presence of the Lord descended like a thick cloud, and the glory of God mirrored his mercy. Moses entered, empowered to speak on behalf of his people. Lord, if I have found grace in your sight, show me now your way, that I may know you and find grace in your sight. Exodus 33 verse 13. The Lord responded, my presence will go with you, and I will give you rest. Exodus 33 verse 14. A flicker of hope ignited within Moses, and with boldness he replied, if your presence does not go with me, do not bring us up from here. Exodus 33 verse 15. In this sacred dialogue, Moses discovered the profound significance of God's presence, yearning not just for the blessing of promise, but for the dwelling of the divine among them. The connection restored, the spirit renewed. Moses then asked fervently, show me your glory. Exodus 33 verse 18. The Lord answered, I will make all my goodness pass before you, and I will proclaim before you my name, the Lord. Exodus 33 verse 19. Thus, the stage was set for a greater revelation of his character and purpose, compelling Moses to seek the depths of God's heart. In that moment, the veil of divine secrecy began to part, and hidden within the Lord's promise was a profound truth. The unfolding journey was not merely about reaching the promised land. It was about knowing the God who promised it. The question lingered in the air, weaving among the remnants of despair. What further wonders would arise from God's plan? Little did Moses know that God's purpose would not only draw the Israelites back to faithfulness but also lay the foundation for a covenant that reached through time and touched the hearts of generations to come. And it came to pass, as Moses stood in the cleft of the rock, that the Lord said, behold, there is a place by me where you shall stand on the rock. And while my glory passes by, I will put you in the cleft of the rock, and will cover you with my hand until I have passed by. Exodus 33 verses 21 to 22. With reverent anticipation, Moses positioned himself as instructed. The air grew still, and a sacred hush enveloped the mountain. Then the Lord declared his name to Moses, saying, the Lord, a God merciful and gracious, slow to anger, and abounding in steadfast love and faithfulness. Exodus 34 verse 6. The words echoed through the canyon of his heart, filling him with a profound understanding of divine grace. Moses, enveloped in the presence, shielded from the full brightness of God's glory, trembled yet rejoiced. You are a God who forgives iniquity, he proclaimed, realizing the depths of his mercy towards a sinning people who had so grievously erred. The flood of compassion washed over him as he understood that their redemption hinged upon this understanding of God's character. As the glory of the Lord passed before him, Moses saw the beauty of his holiness. Yet he beheld not just the radiant light, but also the fearsome holiness of the Almighty. I am jealous for my reputation among the nations and for my people, the Lord continued, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children and the children's children, to the third and fourth generation. Exodus 34 verse 7. The weight of this revelation gripped Moses strongly. It was both a warning and a beckoning, a call to uphold the covenant by leading the people into faithfulness. And now, O Lord, he cried out, struck with awestruck fear for his nation, if indeed you will go with us, forgive our iniquity and our sin, and take us for your inheritance. Exodus 34 verse 9. The Lord replied, behold, I make a covenant. Before all your people I will do marvels, such as have not been done in all the earth, nor in any nation. Exodus 34 verse 10. Hope surged within Moses as he grasped the fullness of what was being offered, a partnership in the divine unfolding of God's purpose among the nations. Descending from the mountain, His face shone with an encounter that even he could hardly comprehend. The people, witnessing the radiance, trembled and drew back. He called out to them, longing to assure their hearts, saying, "It is I who has spoken with you, the living God who desires our reconciliation." Exodus 34 verse 30. Yet amidst his revelation and boldness, doubt crept into the hearts of the people. They recalled their pasts, their struggles, and their hunger for immediate comforts. "How shall we go forward?" they murmured among themselves. Their hearts still bore the scars of rebellion, and fear whispered of returning to empty idols. Moses took to the tent of meeting day by day, praying fervently for strength to lead a wayward nation. Remembering God's promise, he entreated, "O Lord, show me your ways, that I may know you and find favor in your sight." Exodus 33 verse 13. In response, God continued to guide him, imparting law and covenant, revealing the necessity of worship and separation unto holiness. As he instructed Moses on the tabernacle's design, he declared, "I will dwell among the Israelites and be their God." Exodus 29 verse 45. Moses' heart soared with understanding. The journey was not solely about their deliverance from Egypt. It was the sacred invitation into a relationship where the divine would dwell among them, transforming their identity as a people set apart. Yet the shadows of past sins loomed large. The temptations to forsake his ways still whispered in their hearts. The battle for faithfulness would unfold. As Moses pondered these weighty matters, a question surged within him. How would the people respond to the continual call of grace? For within God's sovereign unfolding was a redemptive purpose that would echo through ages. Yet the choice to embrace it lay heavy upon their hearts. What would be the full measure of God's miraculous origin in their lives? The wonder of his purpose loomed on the horizon. Yet the path lay treacherous with human frailty. And so, the tapestry of God's redemptive plan continued to weave through the hearts of his chosen people, guiding them from the constraints of Egypt into the wilderness of transformation. With the covenant freshly renewed upon Mount Sinai, the Israelites stood, awaiting their journey not merely towards the promised land, but into a deeper relationship, the very essence of knowing their God. As they journeyed further into the wilderness, accompanied by the mighty presence of the Lord, the clouds of despair began to clear, revealing the dawn of faith. They witnessed his power in every provision, the manna that fell as morning dew, the water that gushed from the rock, crystalline and sweet. Each miracle served as an echo of the covenant, reminders of his unwavering faithfulness amidst their frailty. Yet still the people grappled within their spirits. As Jochebed had once whispered promises into the ears of her son, so now the cries of their ancestors rang in their hearts, a call not only to freedom but to fidelity. Would they grasp the covenant and live as a holy nation, or would the chains of their past bind them anew? The tent of meeting became a sanctuary where Moses, the intercessor, would seek the face of the Lord. He often ascended the mountain, supplicating for grace and guidance, and each time he descended, he brought a piece of heaven's instruction, a blueprint for their lives, a declaration of the laws meant to uphold their community. With each commandment, the people faced a choice: to either embrace the God who had led them thus far or succumb to the desires of their hearts yearning for comfort. Would they live as his treasured possession, radiating his glory among the nations, or would they revert to the allure of idols born from fear and uncertainty? There was the day when the assembly gathered, the tension visible upon their faces, and Moses declared, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. You shall love the Lord with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might." Deuteronomy 6 verses 4-5. It was a call to devotion, a reminder to internalize the covenant and align their spirits with the heart of God. Amidst the challenges, their journey revealed the fragile nature of human resolve. Yet God's mercy shone through their trials, like the morning star piercing the darkness. The Israelites learned that obedience was not rooted solely in duty, but in the knowledge that they were chosen, distinct, called to bear witness to his grace. Then, as they reached the thresholds of promise, the Lord instructed Moses to send forth 12 spies into the land. As each returned with vivid accounts of the harvest, 10 gripped with fear declared the giants in the land too formidable. "We are like grasshoppers," they lamented, their hearts twisted with doubt. Yet Caleb and Joshua, voices of faith amidst despair, proclaimed, "If the Lord delights in us, he will bring us into this land." Numbers 14:8. Their report ignited a fierce debate, but ultimately, the people's hearts turned against God. They opted for rebellion, and the heavens sighed with sorrow. In their fearful lament, they rejected the promise, and a stark judgment fell. The Lord decreed that none of that generation would enter the land but would wander in the wilderness until a new generation arose, ready to claim the promises through faith. Time flowed onward, and he who led them transformed their hearts amid tribulation. Each sun that set across the horizon carried the echoes of lessons learned in the wilderness, fear repurposed into faith, doubts transmuted into trust. For every miracle, every moment of divine provision, molded them into a nation prepared not only for land but for the very presence of the Almighty. Finally, the day of inheritance approached. It was under the leadership of Joshua, son of Nun, who had remained steadfast throughout the wandering years, that the Israelites stood at the banks of Jordan. Moses, their faithful leader, now aged and weary, spoke with holy reverence, "Choose today whom you will serve. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord." Joshua 24:15. It was a charge that pierced the hearts of the people, urging them to remember their identity, their calling, their journey, one grounded in a miraculous origin and sacred purpose. With the waters of the Jordan parting at their feet, the Israelites crossed into their promised inheritance, a land flowing with milk and honey, a tangible expression of God's fidelity. And as they entered, the echoes of their past transgressions mingled with the sound of their footsteps upon the soil of blessing. In that sacred moment, their history found resolution in the faithfulness of God. And thus, they took possession of the land, rejoicing in all he had orchestrated, a nation born through trials, miracles, and covenant love. "The Lord has done great things for us," they proclaimed in unison, aware that they were called to reflect his glory, bear witness to his grace, and walk in the freedom won through travail. In the end, the narrative of Israel did not conclude with conquest but unfolded into a greater story, one that would echo through the ages, culminating in the promise fulfilled through Christ, who would embody the culmination of their journey. As his followers today, we too are invited into this divine saga, not just of liberation but of communion. Will we turn our hearts entirely towards him? This is the moment for the people of faith to step into our promised inheritance. Do not wait another second to consider how this ancient narrative speaks to your own faith journey. To remain entwined with God's word and the stories that transform lives, you need to subscribe now to our channel. Hit the bell icon, and be sure to click all notifications to not miss the next powerful biblical stories that can shape your life. Leave a like now to help spread God's truth through the algorithm, sharing the light of his word even farther. Your reflections matter. Comment below your thoughts, share how this biblical account has impacted your faith, for your voice joins a chorus of believers throughout generations. And don't wait even one more second to share this powerful testimony. Send this message to at least 5 friends who need to hear the truth in this narrative. Only true believers understand the urgency of supporting biblical content to reach more souls for Christ. Let us walk together in faith and fellowship,